So now quicker, just few points I'll just touch upon. Now, for members, what I would like to request is if you have a question, can you please type it on the chat box? I mean, you'll get a chance to also talk to the doctor, but for efficiency, if you can type out your question, it'll be really helpful. So meanwhile, as you're typing or thinking of your question, I'll just raise few points and summarize few things that doctor said so beautifully. So from what I understand, doctor, it is kind of some things that we already knew and some things are like a double whammy. So the brain is already aging with diabetes, and if you have PD, where again the brain ages more than your normal age, so it's like combination of two things that are really affecting your brain and your growth and the health of your brain cells or cells in the body generally. So Dr. Sonna Madri, the best thing to do is to take care of yourself physically and eat good food, right? The diet is very key, big key here. And the second thing is the physical activity. So we always stress physical activity a lot in Parkinson's in terms of yoga or what may be. So now I think it is just a reinforcing mechanism that if you have comorbidity, it's all the more important that you do it. So for fall prevention, I didn't know that diabetes has higher chance of fracture, but now that you're saying that, now we'll insist more to members on the importance of fall prevention. And thank you very much for mentioning impulse control, because impulse control is a natural problem that comes out in Parkinson's. And again, thank you very much for bringing out sexual libido issues that happens with diabetes and in combination with Parkinson's. Because we have over 200 members, doctor, and except maybe one or two, nobody has directly spoken to us about the libido issue that they're having. So this is like an underlying problem which doesn't ever come out, and we try to bring it out in public forum as much as we can. So at least members get to hear about it, think about it, maybe not talk to us about it yet, but at least something for them to process and know that it is not that they want to just go around being promiscuous, but there is like a medical condition which is making them, right? So that's very good. And then thank you for bringing out issues about BP and cholesterol to keep it in control. Ninga sonna madri, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I wanted to ask you statins apathy, because there's so much controversy around statin, especially it's a form of a blood thinner, so that can lead to heart problem or this problem, and if you have already a stroke, it's just all over the place. So I want members to have a takeaway that as important as statin is, right, and as much noise and controversy that surrounds it, so take what doctors say seriously. But if you have issues in taking statin, that will be your call to whether to take it or not in consultation with your physician. So yes, there are some side effects, but there are also huge benefits with statin. So on the ways, and you have to weigh the pros and cons given your body condition and what your doctor is suggesting to you and how comfortable you feel taking it, by having all the facts surrounding statins. So controversial, I just want to put it out there that doctor is recommending, but it will be finally your call and your physician's call, taking into consideration your body issues and your priorities and how you manage health, right? So I just wanted to put it out there. Doctor, neenga sonneenga oru quick thing, pre-diabetes in diabetes pogama paathukanonu. Can you tell us what it is pre-diabetes exactly?
So the normal blood sugar for people is fasting sugar is below 100. And if you drink 75 grams of glucose and then do a test 2 hours later, it should be below 140, normal people. And there's another test called the HbA1c, which is a average of 3 to 4 months, how the glucose attaches to the hemoglobin. That should be below 5.7. These are all normal people. People with diabetes, their fasting sugars for diagnosis is 126 or more. And if you drink glucose, it should be more than 200. And A1C 6.5 or more. So everyone who is in between these two, 100 to 125 fasting. Glucose kurichi between 140 and 199. A1C between 5.7 and 6.5 are all pre-diabetes. It's a term that we should use. There is no word called as borderline, mild, conjoined, touch of it. nothing. There is no condition like that. Either we are normal, we have pre-diabetes, or we have diabetes. And why pre-diabetes is important? Almost all the mischief that diabetes can do, pre-diabetes can also do.
Right.
So we have to look at pre-diabetes. Whenever I make the diagnosis, I tell them, pretend you have diabetes. Because that's where no treatment is. You have to eat healthy, lose weight, be active, and that's all. So you just have to think, this is a wake-up call for me.
Right.
Because it's very easy for a busy doctor to tell the patient, "Unga sugar konja lesa kuda irukku, konja jakardeya irungo." That doesn't mean anything. It's to patients. Before they leave the clinic, it's out of their, out of mind, out of sight, and the mari poidum, out of, So the importance of pre-diabetes. It's a big diagnosis.
Oh, great. So one more thing I wanted to share with you, doctor. I think you did mention it, but I want to elaborate. There is a recent study or research that shows that if you had years of diabetes, like over 20, 30 years, say, there are chances of developing Parkinson's because of it, which I think you said you do tend to develop Parkinsonism symptoms. So in the research, conclusive illa diabetes nala Parkinson's varudhu solla mudiyadhu. Maybe if you already have a genetic predisposition, maybe if you're also exposed to certain environmental factors, and if you're diabetic, maybe as a combination of all this, maybe you tend to develop some either Parkinsonism symptoms or like Parkinson's itself. So idu unno conclusive illa, the word is yet to be out, but this is something for us to be cognizant about, that if you have years of diabetes, it's very important you keep it under control, have the right diet, do the right exercise, and then maintain that and maintain your PD life. Doctor, I'm going to ask members questions, but before that, I just want to clear one common man myth, that if you eat a lot of sugar, you will get diabetes. Romba chakkara saapidra, unakku diabetes vandrum. So is this a myth or is this a reality to some extent?
Total myth.
Thank you for saying that.
But I'll have a thing there. So the moral of the story is, if you eat too much of, sugar, fat, whatever, and you put on weight, then you get more diabetes.
Right.
So, but it's not from eating sugar.
Yeah, it's not from eating, because you're not processing that. Your body is not able to process that. And a lot of times the example we give in explaining PD is insulin sorakadanaala diabetes ingiranga, dopamine sorakadanaala Parkinson's. So that's one example we give, just to make them understand, because diabetes is more common than PD is, and unfortunately both are terrible to have, and if you have both, it's all the more bigger challenge to have. So let's just move on to questions from members. Let me see. One, we have an appreciation from Mr. Vignesh saying excellent presentation, and he wants the recording. Sure, sir, we'll send it to you. And Mr. Ganeshan has. Okay, I'll go easy on each question. Will paleo diet help reducing obesity and diabetes?
Also a short answer. Whenever people ask me that, I just say, we are not cave people. Because I'll tell you why. That was a time of feast and famine. In the Paleolithic era, in the cave people era, there was feast and famine. Or animal for several days they'll be eating nothing, some berries here, there, till they get the next animal to kill. And also, killing an animal is not easy. They have to chase it and run after it and kill it. So they were all physically, fit people, and they did those things. So their diet was primarily this kind of, fat and protein-based diet. We, on the other hand, absolutely eat 3 times a day. There is no question of famine. There is no question of chasing after an animal. We can call Swiggy and the animal comes home. So there is no, I'm just saying that where is the fit, physical fit. So that is the one reason. The second main reason, as a doctor, if you put somebody on a zero or a very, very low carb diet and put them on a very high fat and protein diet, we do not know what will happen to them 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So if you we can be just say very myopic and say, 6 மாசத்துல ஒரு வருஷத்துல your weight will come down. Weight will come down, sugars will come down, everything will come down. But we do not know what all this ஒரு நாளைக்கு 10 முட்டை சாப்பிடுறது, இதை சாப்பிடுறது, அது சாப்பிடலாம், what it's doing to your kidneys or your heart or your brain. We don't know. So how can I, with a conscience, prescribe something, the future of which we don't know. So what we are saying is, don't do paleo, don't do keto, don't do all those things, but definitely cut down the carb. இப்போ நம்ம எப்படி சாப்பிடுறோம்னா ஒரு 50 to 60% carbohydrate, or 20% protein, about 30% fat. So change that to make your diet maybe 30-40% carb, at least 30% protein, and a 30% fat diet. So then you get, it's all in moderation, and it's also sustainable, because all these people, I'm telling you, will be walking around depressed and deprived. So it's not, there's also something going on mentally. Coming back to depression, there is also a higher amount of depression in people with diabetes and in people with Parkinsons. So really important. And then there's also connection between depression and glucose control. So if your diabetes is in better control, you are more likely to think positively.
Okay, that was great. So Mr. Ganesh and Dr. Surukama என்ன சொல்றாங்கன்னா, yes, நீங்க paleo வேணா நீங்க பண்ணலாம், but அது வந்து
நான் சொல்லல, பண்ணாதீங்க.
இல்ல, அவருக்கு ரொம்ப குறைக்கணும்னு ஆசையா இருந்தது for whatever reason. Should people having, he's also asking, people having type 2 diabetes, should they completely avoid carbohydrate? I think you addressed paleo. Yeah.
So you can take about 30-40%, but I'm just telling you, if you're a vegetarian, romba kashtam to make a diet, adukku nariya time spend panni, plan panni, what to eat, how to eat, adu mari nariya pannom.
Okay, so yes, don't completely avoid carbs. Number one, we are used to it and it's a comfort food. You have to be having a balanced diet and you can't completely cut it out. Sir, one question ketirkaru, but I'm going to move on to others, sir, so we get a chance for everybody. Mr. Shankar Narayanan kekkuraru, can a diabetic person do intermittent fasting and make ketones take over and reduce inflammation in the brain? So intermittent fasting panna idella nadakunu nambranga nenikren, that there'll be more ketones and there'll be reduction in inflammation. Do you think it is recommended intermittent fasting for somebody with diabetes?
Again, especially with diabetes, the traditional teaching has been small frequent meals. And the reason for this is when you eat 2 meals, right? And intermittent fasting la or morning or 10 mani 11 manikku saapttu thiruppi evening or 6 manikku saapttu, then they don't eat anything till the next day, right? So there are only 2 meals. When you take 2 meals like that, the spike in sugar is high and the spike in insulin is high to meet that, and you may not have that much insulin to meet that, is one thing. Then for a long time you're going without any food. And I just want to tell you, the brain is the only part of the body that can use only glucose. The only part. So we really have, that's why they've also shown that people who go on a fasting diet, their brain actually shrinks. So here we are talking about how to grow the brain, make the cells bigger and all that. So we don't want it to shrink. And so, my thinking is that இதெல்லாம் வந்து தமிழ்ல ஒரு பழமொழி இருக்கு, எத்த தின்னா பித்தம் தெளியும். So do something different, odd. Best thing is to eat small regular meals, all in moderation. Eat with the family, not at some odd times that for that, and for that occasional person where under supervision they're doing something, that may be okay for whatever reason they're doing that. I'm just saying that For majority, it is eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, smaller portions, healthier, the composition of the meal should not be. See, another thing, if you eat rice and rasam and appalam, nutrition irka? Conjoined carbs, but totally nutritionless food. So we have to pay more attention to what is going. It's a little work intensive. Nariya kaigari samikkaradallam, but kuttu, keera, poriyal, salad, everything is great.
Yeah. Thank you, doctor. The balanced diet is the key. Romba extreme intermittent fasting actually goes against the conventional wisdom of how to manage diabetes. And Dr. Ninga, you said brain uses only sugar. Is that what?
Yeah.
So it takes
glucose.
Sorry?
Glucose. So when the body, when our sugar goes too low, in a diabetic, for example, if they become hypoglycemic, low sugar archana, the part that gets most affected is the brain. They develop, they can develop seizures, then they go into a coma, and then depending on the extent to how long there has been no sugar to the brain, their recovery without damage to the brain. So if it was able to cleverly use the ketones, நம்ம ஸ்டார் பண்ணும்போது ketones அது யூஸ் பண்ணிக்குமே.
So brain exclusively uses a lot of glucose and sugar. Means it takes from all the food that you're giving and then that directly goes into the brain.
It goes into the stomach and then glucose goes up in the blood and then that goes to the brain. So நம்மளே பார்த்திருக்கோமே, when we don't eat இங்கெல்லாம் dull ஆயிடும்.
That's actually
தலைவலிக்கும், dull ஆகும்.
Correct. So that's why I'm very keen to understand this so I can manage my sugar levels. There are a lot of questions, but I'm going to go to a very relevant one and a technical one by Dr. Gopalakrishnan. How to regenerate hippocampus? Is there any medication available?
So no medication. It's primarily a lot of nutritious foods that are rich in antioxidants and this monosaturated fats, and then a lot of physical activity. They've also linked physical activity with regeneration of the hippocampus, better sleep, and if you have obstructive sleep apnea in the snoring, ராத்திரியில திரும்ப மூச்சு நின்று போறாப்லாம் சில பேருக்கு இருக்கும், அந்த மாதிரிலாம் இருந்தா to see a sleep specialist. We now call that sleep hygiene. So அந்த sleep specialist பார்த்து CPAP இருக்கு, அது மாதிரி போட்டுக்கலாம். But weight குறைக்கிறது is an important part of obstructive sleep apnea. So அது பண்ண, that's something part of this whole regenerating the hippocampus. And then in the sudoku பண்றது, mindfulness பண்றது, meditation பண்றது, those are in this big program in the US, West Coast la irukku. They've got this big institute for rejuvenation, regenerating the thing, and where they are doing these things, and they have patients on a baseline brain MRI and showing the hippocampus, and then after all these things what it's doing to the brain and actual regeneration and all that. So keeping the mind very active, and for that also we need to overcome to an extent depression, and doing a lot of joyful happy things, putty things, but they may be see, for example, my dad is 91, my mother is 89, going to be 90 in December. She hassles my father all the time. நீங்க அதை இந்த டிவியை பார்க்குறேன், நீங்க இதை பண்றீங்க, நீங்க அதை So I keep telling her that's what is keeping him young and active. He watches the stock market for years and he still does that. And she says, why are you doing that? And I said, that's what makes him tick. That's what is keeping his brain good. So whatever brain activity that is challenging to you and you've been doing, and it can be crossword puzzle, sudoku, many things like that, people should do it.
So what is the advantage of having a healthy and a regenerated hippocampus, doctor? What is the
Better memory.
better memory? Okay.
See, the biggest problem with aging is memory issues and the cognitive function. So the hippocampus helps with memory and cognition. So see, what also happens is when people forget, slowly, there can be misunderstandings. And then that leads to something, and that leads to something. So it's really important to
heartening to know that to control your memory and cognition is actually in your hands. You can do something about it. It can
yes, and lower stress. See, and lowering stress, people think, oh, ரொம்ப easy சொல்லிட்டீங்க doctor. So it's not easy. But then, like for example, again, I'll talk about my mother. இப்போ பால்காரன் பால் போட்டுட்டு போறான் இல்லையா packet. அது ஏதோ ஒரு one packet அவன் குறைச்சு போட்டாக்க, it is like the end of the world. That's working. She'll call the palkaran, she'll do this, make him come back, put it, and we will have 10 other packets in the freezer. So we don't need one more packet. And so if you get yourself tied up in knots about things that are really, I just want to say, useless issues. So what, ஒரு packet பால் வரல, so what, இன்னைக்கு பேப்பர் வரல, ஒரு நாளைக்கு இன்டு பேப்பர் படிக்காட்டா என்ன? Geeta is looking at me like, how can you say that? So or some வீட்டுக்கு வேலை செய்யற lady ஒரு நாளைக்கு half an hour late ஆவரா. I'm just saying that why work ourselves up in knots about silly things like these?
Right. True.
When we have President Trump pulling out of the WHO.
Because worry about you were telling not to worry even about that. I mean,
so I am a Buddhist, by the way, just to tell you. Right. I'm born Hindu, but Buddhist.
You are a practicing Buddhist.
Yes. A believer of Buddhism and follower of the Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
So he says, if you can change something, why worry about it?
Yeah.
If you can't change something, why worry about it?
True. Pretty much don't worry. Okay, doctor, I have a very interesting question from a member. Mr. Raman, Kaya Tupinga, so doctor knows whose question that is. Yeah, so that's Mr. Raman.
Okay.
In fact, he's been affected with PD a little at a younger age than most. I think it was in his early 50s, so maybe he had it when he was in his late 40s. And he recently had deep brain stimulation, like maybe 6 months ago, and he's feeling much better since. So his question is, I'm not diabetic, that's what he says, but I have had Parkinson's for past 11 years. I'm 60 years old, right? So 6 months before I had DBS, obesity is my concern. I was a bit obese before the surgery, but now after I am more. இது என்ன பண்றது அப்படின்னு கேக்குறாரு. I mean, he always brings this up in most meetings also. So how can we help him, doctor?
Help to lose weight?
Well, he's saying, pretty much to lose weight, and he's saying, why am I getting more obese even after my surgery? It's not related.
But it's got nothing to do with the surgery. See, the appetite center and our satiety center, meaning porone namakku feeling varudilla, that satiety center and pasi, appetite center, rendum brain la da irukku, in the hypothalamus, which is above the pituitary, கொஞ்சம் far away from the places that we are talking about. So they are different centers. So I'll just take about 1 minute and tell you this whole weight problem irukku இல்லையா, அது அதுக்கு it's not there's no one explanation for it, because why some people are easily gain weight while others என்ன வேணா சாப்பிடுவாங்க எப்போதுமே லைஃப் முழுக்க, the people we love to hate, they are always thin. Why are they like that? So just like our height or this or that, our weight is also predetermined. So there is what we call or brain kulla or ponderostat ஒன்னு இருக்கு, அதாவது it controls the weight. So suppose உங்களோட weight is destined to be 180 pounds னு வெச்சுக்கோங்க, or kilos ல சொன்னா ஒரு 85 kilos வெச்சுக்கோங்க. உங்க பாடி என்ன பண்ணும், எவ்ரி டைம் யூ ட்ரை டு லூஸ் வெயிட், 85ல இருந்து 80க்கு நீங்க கொண்டு வரக்க பாத்தீங்க, 75 கொண்டு வர பார்த்தேன்னா உங்களோட டே இன் அண்ட் டே அவுட் சண்டை போட்டு இருக்கும். The moment you start losing weight, உங்க பசியை ஜாஸ்தி பண்ணி விடும். Because then you will eat. The second thing that it will do is lower your metabolic rate. And it is trying to keep you at that weight. So உங்களோட சண்டை போட்டுண்டே தான் இருக்கும் அது. So all that you can do is, அதுக்கு மாதிரி பசி வரப்போது eat some வெள்ளரிக்காய், தக்காளி, carrot, or வேர்க்கடலை, some பொரி பொட்டுக்கடலை, something that is not high caloric but keep it down. And in the metabolic rate jack up பண்றதுக்கு the only thing is physical activity, and that I'm not sure how much you are able to do, but there's only so much you can do. Right? So some other things நீங்க பண்ணலாம். You can, in the upper body ergometrics னு சொல்றா இல்லையா, so you can take 2 weights in your hand. You can you take the weights and you could do all that in front of wherever you're sitting.
He has the weight. He's showing you the weight.
Even if you don't have arm weights or something, ஒரு 2 bottle தண்ணி fill பண்ணி அதை வச்சு you can keep doing. You can keep exercising your legs. You can do all of that. And if you're able to move around, you keep moving around, because actually they've shown more than this in the chumma morning or half an hour walk போயிட்டு வந்துட்டு then sitting in front of the TV விட the best is small activities. ஒரு 5 நிமிஷம் walk பண்ணிட்டு ஒரு 20 minutes you can sit down. ஒரு 5 நிமிஷம் walk பண்ணுங்க, you sit down. That keeps your metabolic rate up all the time. It's much better. And of course, eating healthy. So don't worry about the weight, because நாங்களே இப்ப வந்து we are not telling people நீங்க இத்தனை weight இருக்கணும், இப்படி இருக்கணும், because you eat as healthy as you can. You be as active as you can. After that, where your weight falls is your weight. அதுக்கு மேல என்ன பண்ண முடியும்?
Very, very practical and good.
And that's also the truth, because the moment you start eating less, the body does not know you're eating less because you're on a diet. Right. The body thinks சாப்பாடு கிடைக்கல உங்களுக்கு, so it will try to preserve your weight, hold on to everything. So உங்களோட metabolic rate அப்படியே நல்லா கீழே கொண்டு வந்துரும்.
I really didn't know this, that the brain has fixed a weight for you and it brings you to that. I really didn't know this. But as you're saying, I was thinking about how my body also does that. So when I feel it's going colored and I'll get some illness or sickness and I'll come back to that weight. And then if I'm not eating well, again, metabolism.
See, suppose your weight is 60 kilos, for example, Sudha, and if you went up to 63 because you went on a vacation, and the 63 lens 60 ku kadagadan vandrum korunjirum, because that's your weight. Your body, ninga 60 lens 55 ku poga paranga.
Yeah, it's very tough. It doesn't allow you to do that.
No, it won't allow you.
It won't. And as you said, and it's not sustainable. Even if you somehow do it, it will stay for a short time.
You'll always be an uphill battle. It doesn't mean it can't be done. It can be done, but you'll always be fighting with your body.
Exactly. I think at this age, I accepted this is a certain way that my body looks like, and it's okay. If I want it to look some other way, it's not possible. So as she rightly said, doctor, eat healthy, exercise well. And what happens to body after that is it has its own intelligence to control that, but this is what is in your hands. So just to stay with Mr. Raman for one more minute, he has a follow-up to that. Regarding diabetes, my blood examination shows 96 during fasting, 120 postprandial, and H1BC 1 at 6. So I think he is wondering, does he fall under pre-diabetic or is a parameter okayங்கிறதுக்காக அது சொல்றாருன்னு நினைக்கிறேன்.
So good question. So one of them, the HbA1c has come as 6, which is pre-diabetes. The fasting is completely normal, but this postprandial illa neenga சாப்பிட்டுட்டு போய் எடுத்தது அதை வச்சுட்டு ஒண்ணும் பண்ண முடியாது, அது யூஸ்லெஸ், அதுக்கு போட்டலாம். But if you really want to know more about whether you have diabetes, you have to drink glucose. 75 grams glucose குடிச்சிட்டு 2 hours ஒரு டெஸ்ட் பண்ணணும். So there's all the standardization of 140, 200, adala, only based on the 75-gram glucose and not what we eat, because what we eat will not be standardized. What I eat will be different from other carbohydrate content, fat content, protein, whereas the 75-gram glucose is standardized. So adu pannanom. I'm just telling you, you don't have to do you don't have to do that also. Just pretend you have diabetes. That's all. Eat healthy.
Eat healthy and follow the rules that you would do otherwise, and this will automatically get adjusted.
Yeah, think about it. Nobody needs gulab jamun or jangri or laddu or sweets or cool drink or ice cream. Some special day you have some little bit is okay. But I'm just saying it doesn't have to be this Swiggy ad lavarapla. It shouldn't be like Nanchinda. You can't call and ask for a gulab jamun. That is not good.
Right. Okay, doctor. Since we're on the topic of testing and things, we had a question from Mr. Vignesh. I think he wants to know, why do we calculate HB1AC? அது எதுக்கு பண்றோம் நமக்கு தெரியும்.
அது ஏன் பண்றோம்னா, see, suppose let's say you do fasting sugar இன்னைக்கு, and that is reflective of just that day, that moment, because அதோட previous day நீங்க குறைச்சு சாப்பிட்டிருக்கலாம், ஜாஸ்தி சாப்பிட்டிருக்கலாம், தூங்காம இருந்திருக்கலாம், தூங்கி இருந்திருக்கலாம், and diabetic-ஆ இருந்தா மருந்து எடுத்துருக்கலாம், மருந்து எடுத்துக்காம இருக்கலாம், or there are so many variables that will change the fasting sugar. அதே மாதிரி postprandial will depend entirely on that day. சாப்பிடாம இருந்திருக்கலாம், சாப்பிட்டு இருந்திருக்கலாம், ஹோட்டல்ல சாப்பிட்டிருக்கலாம், வீட்டுல சாப்பிட்டிருக்கலாம், you may be sick, you may have a toothache, so everything will change it. Whereas this one is the average of how your sugar is the last 3 months. So much better to know on an average where am I than this one-off values.
Yeah. Since we are talking technicalities, we also had Mr. Ganeshan wanting to know what is the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes.
So very, very different. So type 1 is when the pancreas, which makes insulin, for some reason suddenly does not make enough insulin or no insulin. And why that happens is, we call this autoimmune. Auto is self, immune is the antibody. So autoimmune means number body number gland ku edira antibodies produce pannom. See, for example, if you develop antibodies to COVID-19, that's because the COVID virus went into your body and your body reacted to that and produced antibody. In autoimmunity, there is no virus, there is no bacteria. It's making it against your own body cells. Thyroid is an autoimmune disorder, type 1 diabetes. So what happens is that in a predisposed individual with this kind of autoimmune issue, sometimes they have infection or inflammation of the pancreas. There'll be a history of some recent fever, cold, cough, and then after that quickly the pancreas will stop making insulin, and typically happens in children and adolescents. They will lose weight rapidly, they'll get very sick very fast, and the only treatment for them is insulin. World over, scientists are working on cure. We are not there yet, but insulin is now available in all kinds of forms, in vials, in pens, in pumps, in all kinds of ways. They're also working on insulin as a tablet, so they're working on that. In 2021 beginning, it will be 100 years since the discovery of insulin. So it's a phenomenal contribution to science. Millions of lives have been saved. So it's a great thing.
Yeah. Thanks, doctor. Let me see if there are any more questions.
So just to add, in type 2 diabetes, the body makes insulin, but in the insulin seriya vela seiyala. At the cellular level, there is resistance to the action of insulin. So that's why we usually help with some medicines, either to improve that resistance or supplement a little bit of the insulin through tablets or through insulin itself. But the body is making insulin.
It's not assimilating it well.
Assimilating it is one way, or they just there is the resistance to the action of it.
Okay, a resistance to the action of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mr. Raman is putting his weight out there. So my weight was 110 and now it has become 127. It was this weight that we were discussing before.
It was 110, now it is
127.
So in the deep brain stimulation க்கு அப்புறம் நீங்க கொஞ்ச நாள் ரெஸ்ட்ல எல்லாம் இருந்தீங்களா?
Sir, can you unmute yourself, sir? Na pannava?
Oh, clear.
Solunga, sir.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
So,
I was 110 and 1 month I took rest, and then I started my exercise and I think, so as you said, most of part of the day I am sedentary, but only morning and evening I do exercise and walking, everything. And
so
my diet is very, very less.
So what you do is keep moving throughout the day.
Okay.
That helps. And typically, Sudha, நம்ம ஊர்ல after any surgery, it could be any surgery, people are taking rest, yeah. So when you take rest, even your normal level of activity stop ஆயிடுறது இல்லையா? So the weight will come rapidly on.
Yeah.
Okay. So then after that, திருப்பியும் struggle to shed that. It'll take, but you will come back to 110. கொஞ்சம் கஷ்டப்படணும்.
Yeah.
Only one thing on intercept. Doctors told me before the surgery that after the surgery I'll be putting more weight. That will be the criteria for Parkinson's surgery. That's what they told me. Accordingly, it has happened also.
Oh,
Okay.
They did warn you then that you'll be putting on weight. So maybe this is like a pattern that they're seeing.
Okay.
Okay. So, sir, I'll have to stop you right there. And Chitra, madam, you had your hand up. Or do you have a question? Because நீங்க கொஞ்சம் unmute பண்றீங்களா, madam? I'm not able to unmute you and ask your question. இந்த செல்வராஜ் யாருன்னு தெரியலங்க. அடிக்கடி நீங்க வந்து அன்மியூட் ஆகி பேக்ரவுண்ட் நாய்ஸ் ரொம்ப வருது. So செல்வராஜ், keep yourself muted and சொல்லுங்க மேடம். சித்ரா மேடம்.
ஒரு 1 week back வந்து தைராய்டு டெஸ்ட்லாம் எடுத்துருக்கேன் மேடம். அதுல I was diagnosed as a hyperthyroid. பட் ஜெனரலி எனக்கு இருந்தது இல்ல. அதுல T3 T4 அந்த வேல்யூஸ்லாம் நார்மல்ல இருக்கு. only that ultra sensitive TSH, that alone is low. And I have been prescribed beta cap for 2 months. And when I start taking the tablet, I find my BP is falling.
Yeah, because beta cap is BP medicine, and it's a beta blocker. And நீங்க உங்களுக்கு வந்து இந்த symptoms ஏதாவது படபடப்பு அதெல்லாம் இருக்கா?
படபடப்பு இல்ல, that is எப்பவுமே எனக்கு குளிரும். ஏசிய போட்டாலே குளிரும் எனக்கு. So I start somehow managing with shawl and other things. Even it is at 20, it's kept at 24 or 23, I'm not able to tolerate it.
So just to tell you, that's unusual. Hyperthyroid, overactive thyroid, the symptoms are heat intolerance. Heat தான் தாங்க முடியாது. And usually the symptoms are கொஞ்சம் படபடப்பு இருக்கும், கொஞ்சம் கோவம் வரும், some சின்ன விஷயம்லாம் irritability இருக்கும், கையெல்லாம் கொஞ்சம் லேசா நடுக்கம் மாதிரி இருக்கும், ஜாஸ்தி வேர்த்து கொட்டலாம், நிறைய பசிக்கும், வெயிட் குறையும், லூஸ் மோஷன். ஸோ இதெல்லாம் தான் யூசுவல்.
பசி இருக்கு நிறைய, எப்பப்பார் பசி.
Okay, so the other thing is in the so the beta cap may have been given, maybe your heart rate was high, we don't know, or கொஞ்சம் ஏதாவது பதட்டமா இருக்குன்னு நீங்க சொல்லியிருந்தாக்க அவ கொடுத்திருப்பா. But when you say that T4 and T3 are all normal, you may not even need any treatment, just a follow up and observation, because sometimes these numbers are all they've been there with us for years and never did us any harm. We go for a checkup and it will show up. So all you may need is to just be under supervision for a few months கழிச்சு திருப்பி உங்களோட thyroid test பார்ப்பாங்க. Suppose your blood pressure is
one minute, doctor. Sorry to disturb you.
சொல்லுங்க.
I have also undergone DBS 1 year back. And I'm taking this dopamine and other the Parkinsons medicines for 15 years now.
Okay.
That anything may affect this?
So the brilliant point you brought up. So dopamine decreases the TSH. So your TSH may be low just because of that. So you don't need any medicine. You don't need anything.
Wow.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was very
இது வந்து ரொம்ப சிம்பிள் ஆன்சர். ஏன்னா நாங்க இந்த டோபமைன் வந்து ஐசியூல பிளட் பிரஷரை மேல கொண்டு வரதுக்கு பேஷண்ட்ஸ்க்கு தரோம் இல்லையா, அப்போ வந்து அவங்களோட TSH கீழே போயிடும். So உடனே we will get consultation as an endocrinologist. Lot of times we will get consulted. Oh, the TSH is low, but it's because the patient is on dopamine infusion. So you're good, all good.
Thyroid, doctor?
எதுப்பா? TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone.
Oh, okay. And if there's an increase of dopamine, that comes down. Oh, ஐயோ என்னங்க சித்ரா அளவேல கேட்டீங்களே மேடம்.
எனக்கு வேண்டி இருக்காது. I'm feeling so bad. I keep thinking I will fall.
ஐயோ.
But the good news is you don't have a thyroid problem.
Yeah. Oh wow. This is fantastic.
So I feel good today. Yeah.
You did a consultation, online consultation.
Yeah, I feel good today.
Yeah. So well, written questions எல்லாம் almost நம்ம cover பண்ணிட்டோம். வேற யாருக்காச்சும் ஏதாச்சும் ஜெனரலா we have few minutes left. Can anybody ஏற்கனவே கேட்டவங்க இல்லாம வேற யாராச்சும் கேள்வி கேட்கணும்னா கையை தூக்குங்க. Then we can unmute ourselves and ask a question. Anybody else has anything else to ask? I don't see any hands going up.
Okay.
Ganeshan sir, உங்களை தவிர நான் கேட்டேன். நீங்க ஒரு 10 question கேட்டுட்டீங்க. So anybody, if nobody is asking, you will get a chance, sir.
அதான் சொல்றேன்.
அதான் சொல்றீங்களா? சரி, கேளுங்க.
அதனால தான் வெயிட் பண்ணேன்.
சரி, கேளுங்க.
இல்ல என் ஒய்ஃபுக்கு வந்து முன்னாடி வந்து 7க்கு மேல இருந்துச்சு, 8 வரைக்கும் போயிடுச்சு. HA1B1. அப்புறம் வந்து அதுக்கப்புறம் வந்து அவங்க ரொம்ப இன்க்ரீஸ் பண்ணிட்டே போனாங்க டோசேஜ். அப்புறம் வந்து ஒரு லெவல்ல வந்து இன்சுலின் போட வேண்டியது இருக்கும், ரெடியூஸ் பண்ணுங்கன்னு சொல்லி சொன்னாங்க. சொல்லவும் இப்போ வந்து டெஸ்ட் பண்ணா குறைஞ்சிட்டே இருந்துச்சு, 7 கீழே தான் இருந்துச்சு. இப்போ வந்து 5.4. ஸோ மெடிசன்ஸ் வந்து குறைக்கணும்னு சொல்லி டாக்டர்ஸ் வந்து குறைச்சிருக்காங்க. 5.4 வந்து ரொம்ப கம்மியா?
கம்மியில இட் இஸ் if ஒருத்தர் வந்து மருந்தே எடுத்துக்காம 5.4 இருக்குன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்களேன், that is brilliant, they are great. பட் மருந்து எடுத்துட்டு அவ்வளவு லோவா கொண்டு வரணும்னு அவசியம் இல்லை. Below 7 is fine. The reason is if we overdo the medicine, low sugar வந்துரும். And low sugar is also not good, and particularly for the brain. So you want to make sure that you don't overtreat the patient. So மருந்தெல்லாம் டெஃபினட்டா குறைச்சு, if you can bring her A1C to somewhere between 6.5 and 7, that's all we need.
Okay, great. Thank you, doctor. One last question, doctor. No, not doctor. Actually, Mr. Gokula Krishnan கேட்டிருக்காரு. For pancreas to function well, does it need dopamine அப்படின்னு கேக்குறாரு.
No.
They are not connected, sir.
No.
Not like that.
No, not really.
Yeah, not really, not like that.
Okay. See, all these neurotransmitters la irukku illaya, this dopamine and other neurotransmitters, they have action at cellular level for many body parts. But the thing is, the pancreas is not primarily driven by that.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. So anyway, good questions, sir, just to understand if there is a connection. வேற யாராச்சுக்கு ஏதாச்சும் கேட்கணுமா? Is anybody wanting to ask anything else or say something? Okay, நான் என்ன குயிக்கா நான் என்ன பண்ண போறேன்?
Okay, can I say something quickly? So about COVID, I want to say something.
Please, yes.
In the COVID வந்து எல்லாருக்கும் hand wash, mask போட்டுக்கோ, distancing, அதான நம்ம சொல்றோம். அதை விட that's important. Even more important is sugar control, BP control, and those things. And if you have heart problems, keeping that under check. And people with any other health issues, older patients, must be totally careful, because they have shown repeatedly that it is people who have diabetes or high blood pressure or overweight or heart disease or chronic medical problems who are at risk. So keep that under very, very good control, and until this thing gets resolved, as much as possible, விட்டு வர முடியாது.
True. We just have to continue this online Zoom sessions, I think. So anyway, just give me 1 minute. I thought it will work, but it's not. I need to unmute all of you so we can all thank Doctor. Can you all just unmute yourself for 1 minute so we can say a collective thank you to Doctor? This was really, Doctor, one of our best sessions. Actually, we have been having some really good sessions in the lockdown. The very advantage is we could actually get to talk to you, and I could finally have an interaction with you after knowing about you for so many years.
Thank you so much.
Really,
Thank you.
very informative.
Thank you, Doctor.
We all learned a lot.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
To end the meeting.
Yeah. And just to tell you, Sudha, this afternoon at 4:00, I'm doing a Facebook Live on diabetes and women. So if anybody wants to join, I'm happy to.
Okay, send me the link, Doctor.
I'll send you the link.
On to our
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you all.
Doctor, thank you so much.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Sudha, madam. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Bye, Sudha.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Next
Okay, Geeta wants to come and say bye.
No, Geeta says bye from here.
We have to see the person behind the whole thing. Can you come on camera?
Come.
You guys. Geeta is one of the trustees of Parivartan, but she doesn't come very often. But when we need some help,
Keep it in Anna Nagar.
she says you're in Anna Nagar, so I can't come. Come to Adayar, Geeta. Anyway,
Restart. You're going to go on a sabbatical, so yes.
வரீங்களா? Okay.
அப்படியே பயமுறுத்திட்டே இருக்காங்க.
பயமுறுத்தலாம் இல்ல, நான் கூப்பிடுறேன்.
Thank you so much, Geeta, and for bringing Usha to us.
Thank you guys.
Really,
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Pleasure.
Great point. Thank you so much.
See meeting, Doctor. You.
Sri.
Thank you.
எங்கேயோ போயிட்டாங்கங்க, நான் காணோம். Okay, bye.
இல்ல வரவே இல்லையே.
No, she was there.
அப்படியா?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. மோகனை காட்டுங்க மேடம். அவரை பார்க்கறதே ரொம்ப ரேரா இருக்கு. Hello, Doctor. Thank you for joining us. உங்களை தான் பார்க்கவே முடியறது இல்ல. This was really nice to see you.
எங்க இருக்காரு மோகன்?
இதோ அனிதா மோகன் இருக்கிற இடத்துல மிஸ்டர்.
ஓ, அனிதா மோகன்.
Yeah. Thanks, madam. Thanks for, logging in today.
It was lovely, very good.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sure doctor knows a lot of this already, but very kind of you to join us. Thanks a lot. Akla sir, Mr. Narayanan, sorry, did you have a question? உங்க வீடியோவே இப்பதான் ஆன் ஆகுது, இப்பதான் உங்களை பார்க்கவே முடியுது. Yeah, I can't hear you, sir. Mr. Narayanan, you have to unmute yourself. Okay, I think I'm going to end the meeting now. It was really productive. ஏதாச்சும் வேற questions இருந்தா வாட்ஸ்அப் பண்ணுங்க, நான் டாக்டர் கிட்ட கேட்டு அதுக்கு ஒரு ஆன்சர் வாங்கி தரேன். Bye, sir. Bye, Mr. Shankar Narayanan.
Bye. Thank you.
Sir,
Thank you.
sir, all of you, thank you very much for coming. Bye, madam. See you.